All right, everybody, welcome into episode 118 of Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports here on this February 20th of 2024. I'm Nick Hill, live as always from Chattanooga, Tennessee of the United States. And joining me from Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil is Gustavo Tomazeli. Gus, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Nick. Doing good. Already in the middle of February. It's crazy how fast time goes. Ready to talk some sports. I know now we're shifting uh, from the gridiron to the hardwood, from football to
Absolutely.
basketball in America. I mean, in Brazil, it's soccer season all year long, but in America, when it comes to middle February until like late July, like I say June, it's more basketball. So let's. Uh, I want to start even before college basketball. Let's get NBA out of the way because it's uh, the only thing happening is the All Star game. But I want to debate first. Is the second lowest ratings for the All Star game? Is there anyone to blame, or is just people not tuning in to the league's exhibition of their stars from the NFL's Pro Bowl to MLB Star Game? What are your thoughts of at least the NBA being the second lowest ratings game for the All Star game?
Well, you're seeing that trend in all sports, right? Like the Pro Bowl, frankly, was unwatchable, right, for the NFL. The MLB All Star Game is the one that is still at least somewhat relevant, I would argue. But NASCAR's All Star race feels relatively pointless for the most part. I mean, it's just All Star events. It made sense at a time where you couldn't watch these players on a nightly basis and you couldn't instantly get highlights of them like you can now. Now, like you can watch highlights of any player you want, instant moments after these games end, and the All Star game for that reason just I don't feel a need like I have to watch Luka Doncic play in the All Star game. No,
And,
I'm going to wait for him to play with Dallas.
and also, to add to your point, I feel like up until like maybe early 2000s, from like 90s to 80s, the options of entertainment were very limited. So even when there were MLB, NBA All Star games, and even the NFL Pro Bowl, it was this or nothing. But now the NBA was competing even with hockey and streaming. So people have way more options of entertainment to watch now than 25 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. And you see that for every sport outside of football. We've talked about this before. Football in America is an event. It's something that everything stops for. Like every big Tennessee football game, everything stops for those events. But those are the only things that do stop. Basketball does not have that same urgency to it at all. When teams are playing multiple times a week, it just no one game feels special, including the All Star game. And really, it's not just the All Star game; it's the whole event. The dunk contest. I mean, my God, every single dunk was just how much can we jump over Shaquille O'Neal? That was the dunk contest in a nutshell. Like it wasn't innovative. I've seen all these dunks before. They try to do this shootout with Sabrina Ionesco and Steph Curry, and I understand a lot of people enjoyed that, but I don't need a contest to know that both of those players can shoot the ball really well, right? And then you're gonna cap it off with just this, absolutely pointless exhibition game where they're not playing defense, where they're jacking up crazy shots. Um, it isn't entertaining. We don't want to watch that. No one wants to watch that. And I I just don't know how the NBA expects to get a serious audience again. If this is the product that you're going to get, I mean, 211 points were scored by the winning team in this game. Almost 400 combined points were scored. That shouldn't be possible in basketball.
And people want to see competition. I saw, like, if there were, I even as people talked about this. I like when the MLB All Star Game decided the home field advantage in the World Series. I thought it was a very clever idea. I felt like the point was you choose the best players from your league in baseball because they are incentivized to play well because their team might be in the World Series, and having the home field advantage, it's always good. Maybe the NBA can think something like that because since the league is so driven by stars, the stars might be any like for example, a Giannis be like, "Hey, I want to win because Milwaukee has a great chance to be in the finals." So,
I mean, think about last year. Like, it would have been fair if the East had won the All Star game last year, that the 8th seed of Miami Heat got to host the playoffs, the finals, over the Denver Nuggets, who were the 1 seed in the West. And had played
yeah.
to earn their home field advantage. Like, I can't agree with an All Star game determining that when there's all these other players that may or may not care about your eligibility as as a playoff team.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you can really motivate them. I don't think money does anything. All these guys are getting paid record contracts right now. Um, None of them are hurting for money. I mean, there's really no incentive, and
Yeah.
I feel like honestly at this point, I think you tailor it to kids. You make it goofy, you make it zany, because that's who the audience for that game is going to be. Is going to be children the children who play 2K, who want to watch their stars do crazy stuff. That's who's going to watch this. I mean, I feel like for older sports fans, for serious basketball fans, it's just not for us because we know there's no stakes. For a kid, it's different, and I think for as basically this All Star Games a traveling circus, you know, I think as a family event, I think it's has a value in that manner. The Pro
Kind
Bowl's
of
like
like
that.
kind of turn All Star Game into like a Globetrotters kind of event.
Basically. I mean, that's basically what it is now.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Like, because I've been to a Globetrotters game, and it feels like the most kid friendly basketball game ever. So that's a good point. To kind of shift to and
Right.
make more
Actually,
motivate.
I did meet a Harlem Globetrotter one time.
Yeah, that's true. They went to Knoxville. Yeah, they went to our former radio station WHK.
Right. I totally forgot about that one, but they visited the aquarium when I worked, the Tennessee Aquarium when I worked there. Uh, right out of college. So I've met them on numerous times. So I mean, those guys are talented, but I mean, from a competitive standpoint, it sucks. But we're just with everything that's on the line these days. And here's the thing: I don't want anyone to get hurt in the All Star game. I want these guys to be healthy for the playoffs that are coming up in a few weeks. So because that's what I'm waiting on, right? Like I in all honesty, don't watch that much NBA throughout the regular season because I know, you know, all the teams that are relevant are going to be there in the end of the season.
Yeah, to the game itself. Is there anything you want to lay out? The winner, or
I didn't watch it.
yeah, me too. The
I
only, I guess, the only part that everybody talks about the broadcast itself is Charles Barkley bashing San Francisco compared to Indianapolis. I think it was. It's fair, but it's something uncalled for. It's like,
I mean, I've heard a lot of bad things about San Francisco. I've never been there.
yeah,
I was talking with a former roommate of mine who's from San Francisco area, and he said, they have a lot to clean up, and Do you know? Well, every American city basically has a lot to clean up.
Yeah.
But San
Indeed.
Francisco might be worse than a lot of others, at least from what I see on the on news reports.
Oh yeah, definitely. But I think that's the only part that people are talking about it. But in terms like now that the All Star break is almost done and NBA is back for the part of their regular season. I mean, which teams do you think would be the most interesting, like in this fight for the playoffs? I mean, of course, the Knicks I can see being very interesting. I really feel like they're catching up. It's funny now that they are not the in New York. They're not the dumpster fire they once were. The dumpster fire is in the other side of the city, after beyond the Brooklyn Bridge. Uh, but I can see also the Lakers. I think they're gonna make a run in the second half of the season, at least to keep in the play-in tournament. And it's so crazy. The teams that are they would have been in the play-in right now. It feels surreal. Dallas Mavericks, Dallas Mavericks, Sacramento Kings, Lakers, and the Warriors. I mean, at least for viewership, the West is really interesting playing.
Yeah, and also notice if you look at the top of the bracket there, the top four teams in the West are all within 3 games. In fact, the top 7 teams are all within 7 games of each other. Because you got Minnesota, OKC, the Clippers, and Denver are your top 4 seeds right now. And of course, Minnesota and OKC, 2 teams that have really surged this year. And Minnesota's been a playoff team now for a couple of years, but they've taken a massive step forward. And OKC was behind Shy Gilgeous Alexander has just taken a huge step forward. And you just have to wonder, do either one of those teams have anything for some of these more experienced teams come playoff time? Because they've had amazing regular seasons, but the playoffs are a different beast, and experience counts so much when you get there.
Yeah, that's fair because it's almost like uh, what kind of teams are you getting off, after the playing tournament to match up against the teams in the top? Because it feels like the whoever comes out of the playing tournament, I feel like outside maybe even Sacramento, that last year gave a lot of trouble and had a good run in the playoffs, might do a good matchup. It's not like, oh, the first seed and second seed are going to destroy whoever comes out of the playing tournament. I don't see like that.
Right. And then you look at the rest of the West here, LA, Kawhi Leonard has the ability to do something here that's almost unprecedented. I mean, outside of LeBron, I mean, imagine if Kawhi leads the Clippers to a championship, and this would be the third different team he's led to a finals win and a third different final MVP. Especially
And,
if he does it with Paul George and James Harden, who are chronic chokers.
yeah, and also will be the second time he brings the first title to a franchise. Like that's unheard of. Like you don't see like a player getting the first title to a franchise back to back.
Yeah, I mean his legacy would be really crazy. I have to do a way to do something really insane there. Of course, Phoenix, they've had 2 straight years where they got ran off the floor in their final game in the postseason. Can they afford that for a third time this year? In New Orleans, with Zion, can Zion actually be healthy for the playoffs for once? Can we finally see Zion Williamson in April?
Yeah, and Phoenix will be interesting because you talk about Kawhi, but how about Kevin Durant? He can also achieve third, like his second title with a second different franchise as well.
Right. I think it'd be his third because he won 2 with the
No,
Warriors. But
yeah,
I
no,
would say this
no, no.
this
No, he'll be the second different franchise with a title. I know he won multiple titles with the Warriors, but he didn't win in OKC. So and also he's way motivated to win the Suns because I bet it still hangs over his head. It's like, oh, it wasn't your title, it was Steph and Clay. You just joined the band.
Oh, yes, yes. I think for KD, unless he wins one outside of that, that will always be the thing. And I think about how much the narrative changed on LeBron when he went back to Cleveland and won a title there. Because
Yeah,
before that, he was just, oh, you just joined D Wade in Miami and got a couple.
and Bosh,
You know,
D Wade and Bosh.
yeah.
Yeah, it was
Uh,
basically LeBron and KD was basically the same situation. Like LeBron struggles in Cleveland, Durant struggles at OKC. Join established team. LeBron, okay, you can talk that Miami only won in '06, and after Shaq left, they didn't want any titles. But the Warriors were winning without Kevin Durant, and of course they won multiple after. But that for me, the West has so many interesting narratives.
oh, absolutely. It's much more interesting than the East. And it just feels like it's been that way for a while. Because you look at the East, obviously Boston's running away with the 1 seed right now. Milwaukee with Doc Rivers is an interesting story. Just because
The
Doc
Knicks,
Rivers.
the Knicks is always interesting because it's probably the biggest. It's a kind of the Knicks are the Cowboys of the NBA.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I
Big
definitely would agree with
brand,
that.
big brand. The last success was in the '90s, but choked ever since.
Man, I hope it gets Sixers and Knicks.
Oh my God, that would be an
Yeah.
insane Eastern Conference final.
Man, right now it'll be the first round. And those would be just insane atmospheres. I mean, Miami is there in 7. Can they put together another magical run like they did last year? Um, I think the team that honestly I'm very interested in the postseason is Indiana. With Tyrese Halliburton, who's just been on fire this year. I feel like honestly, them against the Bucks, I could see them. I could see them pulling off an upset there.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. The Boston are kind of the team that uh, uh, they s- they and on paper they should run the table and go to another NBA final, but it just don't. This team really feels like they're kind of you know smelling a little bit of upset. That's what I'm saying. And in terms of the playing tournament, comparing, we talk about the West, the East. It feels a little disparity. Like it feels like, for example, Chicago and Atlanta are kind of a little bit behind the rest. It feels like both of them are getting in because the rest is really bad. Not it's like they're getting in this not because they're good, but because the rest is really bad. Like
Oh yeah,
Toronto, like Brooklyn, Toronto, Charlotte, Washington, and Detroit. They're all tanking. Like even Brooklyn fired their coach.
right. And after they just signed to a multi-year extension, Jacques Vaughn, I think is how you say his name. I don't know how you say it, but they just fired him after signing him to a multi-year extension. They got rid of all their superstars. Of course, the whole thing with KD and Harden, Ben Simmons has just not worked. Of course, Ben Simmons can barely touch the floor these days, and when he does, he doesn't shoot the ball. So. Um,
And Ben Simmons is just sad story because he's such a talented basketball player, but I guess he probably dealt with some mental issues, or he's just talented but not interested in basketball, and it catch up to him. And at the end, Philadelphia made the right choice of embracing Joel Embiid.
yeah, oh yeah. For sure. The Embiid, I think, is soft as well to an extent, but he's a much better player
Yeah,
than
yeah, yeah,
Simmons.
yeah. But
I will
they
say,
had but Philadelphia had to make a choice between two ego soft players, and I guess they chose the right one.
oh yeah. I will say, out of the playing teams, though, Orlando is going to be interesting, just because it's been a long time since they've been in a playoff mix, and they've got a lot of young talent there, like Pablo Banchero. So I'm interested to see how they handle the pressure of the playoffs.
Yeah, and from the last 10 games, Orlando are the second best team. Only behind this I mean, and how about Cleveland? They're the second best team in the East, and it's going to be probably their best chance of getting close to a title without LeBron James. How crazy is that?
Yeah, I mean Donovan Mitchell's a good player, although we really haven't seen it in the postseason. He's kind of not done much, but I mean the Spider has a lot to prove in this, and especially because you remember at Utah they never really did anything.
Yeah, so it looks like at least uh, there's gonna probably the all the spots are going to be decided at least 10 days or a week before the end of the regular season. I don't see any of the bottom teams from like west from Utah to San Antonio, and in the East I don't see maybe Brooklyn fire their coach because they still think they can get the 10th seed. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the NBA. The season is so long, you just don't see a lot of crazy battles
Yeah.
for these spots, and that's why really they should shorten the season some. But at least the playoffs will be here before you know it, and we'll have some really interesting games. And speaking of interesting games here, the Warriors, allegedly, according to reports, although LeBron has denied this, the Warriors at the trade deadline tried to go for LeBron, according to reports. But LeBron said that's never happened, and the first time he heard about it was from the reports. So who do we believe?
I mean, let's analyze uh, let analyze the idea of course, uh, on paper sounds good, but I don't think right now the Golden State Warriors need an aging veteran star player. They have that, for example, with Stephen Clay. If they had to run into like a trade, they should get a rising star, like a player who is still like 23, like a 24, 25, 26 kind of year old player who is young and vibrant and can give a different vibe. I don't see LeBron making any. Of course, LeBron James is a definitely still a really good basketball player, can make a difference. But in terms of chemistry, I don't think it would work.
Oh yeah, I agree. I think obviously LeBron is still playing very well at his age. Obviously Steph is still playing very well, but Clay hasn't played very well this year. The interior for the Warriors hasn't played very well this year, and LeBron isn't going to fix all that by himself. So I think the idea of the Warriors trying to go all in on a chip right now makes really no sense. You're at the end of your rope. And it's been a very, very long rope, a longer rope than most franchises will ever see. But the trade here would not have helped much.
Yeah, that's true, and um, I think it was something probably. Do you know what it is? NBA, NBA writers, they need any story to make relevant because All Star Game doesn't produce anything, and there's no game, so they need to find something to keep things going.
Hey, and anytime you can have LeBron James and the Warriors in the same headline, you're going to get some clicks.
Yeah, probably was about getting the clicks because, as you point out, uh, LeBron find out from the report itself.
Yeah. But in any case, the National Basketball Association will continue its push towards the playoffs. But transitioning back down a level, we are full on approaching March in college basketball, and things are going crazy across the landscape. I actually have a multi-view ongoing tonight. Here are 4 different games, including the number one team in the country, the Connecticut Huskies, trailing in Omaha by 17 to the Creighton Blue Jays, 69-52. Unless they make a crazy comeback, it looks like number one will go down tonight in Nebraska. Additionally, we have BYU and Baylor. I think you also have that one on, Gus.
Yeah, it's going back and forth. BYU just made a 2-point shot, and it's 42-41 with 18 minutes and 25 seconds left.
Yep. I've got TCU up Texas Tech 43-40. We have Utah State and San Diego State, and they're really good Mountain West teams. All 8 of these teams we've mentioned here, all tournament teams right now. 40-33, Utah State over San Diego State. Lots of good basketball on tonight. The basketballs were on earlier, and they've been on a heater heading into tonight. Last week, they played 2 of the lowest teams in the league. Arkansas and Vanderbilt destroyed both of them, won both by over 30 points. Probably the easiest week of basketball ever for Tennessee. But tonight was a little different. They were in a dogfight with a winless Missouri team in conference play. They were trailing at halftime, down by as much as 8 at one point. But Dalton Knecht turned on the lights. Tobe Awaka had a career night at 18 points and 10 rebounds. Jonas Idu had a really good night, and we survived what would have been a devastating loss. Not in terms of missing the playoffs or missing the tournament, but you would have kissed number 1 seed goodbye with a loss to Missouri. So it was good to survive that game. And I'm glad we got through this Arkansas, Vandy, Missouri stretch with no losses because it's huge, because we couldn't afford a loss and we wanted to get a 1 seed.
Yeah, definitely. I think Tennessee is trying to find an identity. Interesting that right now in the tournament they would have been the 6th seed, and I believe they might even face, for example, Texas A&M in the second round. So it probably it's good to get some wins to at least go to like a 4 to a 3rd seed to avoid any to avoid any bigger teams.
Well, I mean, what I mean by the number 6 overall seed, they would be a 2 seed. But they're the number 6 team overall in the country. If they moved up 2 spots, they would be the last 1 seed. Because that's what the NCAA said. Let me pull up what the 16 team bracket. Because let me see it. Because they started doing this a few years ago. And I'm going to pull this up on my computer so I can just kind of better explain what I mean here. Okay, so I have that up. So you can see the top 16 seeds here, and you'll see that here in just a moment. So, as you can see, 1 through 4, your 1 seeds, 5 through 8 are your 2 seeds, and so on. So they do this for the top 16 overall. And right now, your top 4 seeds are Purdue, Connecticut, Houston, and Arizona. 2 seeds are North Carolina, Tennessee, Marquette, and Kansas. 3 seeds are Alabama, Baylor, Iowa State, and Duke. Your 4 seeds are Auburn, San Diego State, Illinois, and Wisconsin. So that's how it would break down according to the NCAA. If they picked on Saturday, Tennessee would have been a 2 seed and their number 6 team overall taken. Which means, if certain things happen, if they can jump over 2 of these teams in front of them, they would be a 1 seed. I mean, that's how close we are. We've never been a 1 seed in school history.
But do you think being a 1 seed is good for the pressure? Because Tennessee always are on pressure, especially in the last 4 or 5 years, to at least make a run into the Final Four. I don't know. I'd rather be a 2 seed and not having a 1 seed pressure.
I mean, I don't know if it would really honestly matter to me. I mean, I think regardless of what seed we are, considering this is going to be our 1 shot with Dalton Knecht, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure no matter what. And personally, I think it'd be cool to be a 1 seed. And but honestly, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if you're a 1 or a 2. What matters is, can you make the Final Four? Now, I'll say this: the way we played tonight, no. That team was not making the Final Four. Missouri is not a good team this year, and for that game to be as ugly as it was terrible.
And and the team is too dependent on Dalton Connect. It feels like.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this: if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have won. We would be, I think, at like a 5 seed at best without him. I mean, he deserves National Player of the Year consideration. He deserves to be the SEC Player of the Year. What he has done for this team has been immeasurable. Now, I will say it's not just him who won this game. Setobe Awaka had his best game as a ball tonight, and he is learning how not to foul while playing, and he is becoming much more dangerous. And that really freed up IDU as well. And really, if Josiah Jordan-James and Santiago Vescovi are going to have terrible games like they did tonight, you're going to need other guys to step up. And unfortunately, those two in particular, you just can't count on them on a consistent basis. It's sad. Now, granted, Vescovi had a good defensive game. He played good in other ways, but he just has no confidence shooting the rock right now. I don't know what the deal is. He just has no confidence. And we're going to need those two to play better if we're going to go deep in March. It's just the facts. But at the very least, I am glad that we won because tonight would have been a quad 3 loss, and that would have sucked completely. Now, I want to pull up Joe Lidinardi's bracketology, the bubble as we have it right now. So this, I believe, was updated earlier today. There's been some movement on this, particularly when we draw your attention to Texas A&M. This is Tennessee's next opponent on Saturday night in Knoxville. We lost to them 2 weeks ago in College Station. Tonight, they suffered a really bad loss at home to Arkansas. They probably have slid into this, if not that. The last 4 in, first 4 out. So right now, your last team in right now is Ole Miss. Remember, they started undefeated before getting into conference play. And then you got Providence as your first team out. First year with a new coach themselves. And it's interesting when you take a look at the bubble here. Of course, we were talking about Pittsburgh and Wake Forest. These are 2 teams on the bubble down here. Of course, you got St. John's. So we got to talk about them here in a little bit with Rick Pitino. Villanova down here in the next 4 out. Remember, they used to be a powerhouse under Jay Wright. Those days are long gone. And even up here in the last 4 in, you've got Gonzaga. Of course, they had a huge win a couple weeks ago against Kentucky. That one's probably keeping them above the cut line right now.
It's so crazy how the last 4 in, 3 of them are, really big brands in college basketball.
I mean, Gonzaga and Butler, sure, but I don't know if I'd call Seton Hall or Ole Miss big basketball brands.
I said Seton Hall is, they're always always good ranking. Okay, 2 big brands, at least one team. There's one program that is a little bit relevant in basketball.
Right, and Seton Hall, they have a St. Peter's coach from 2 years ago, Shaheen Holloway. I believe it was a player at Seton Hall. Remember? So, and of course, they just beat St. John's on Saturday or Sunday, so that helped them to get on this bubble. And also notice, too, in the last 4 buys, we have 2 Mountain West teams. The Mountain West Conference is going to be those teams are going to be very dangerous in March. I don't think a lot of people have paid attention to the Mountain West Conference. Of course, right now we've got Utah State and San Diego State up here on one of the quad boxes here on Multi-TV, the multi-box. Also, shout out Nebraska. Now these has been a weird team. They are undefeated at home in Big Ten play. They are winless on the road, but they still find themselves in.
Better than a football team that cannot win at home or on the road.
That is very correct. So let me scroll on down right now. So you can see it's the different brackets right now. You see UConn, that's number 1 overall seed. Not going to go through every matchup. See Auburn right now is the 4 seed. We have Ole Miss down here at 11.
one thing I point out is that how interesting is Appalachian State always seems that they're not on the top of basketball and football, but they always seems to kind of be relevant or at least be somehow organized. Like shout out to Appalachian State. I mean, their athletics department is it's so I mean they get stuff done in football and basketball.
I'll say this: if this were the bracket, I'm picking Indiana State to beat Wisconsin. Indiana State's a very good team. Of course, you got Florida. Florida's been playing really well, and they're up to a 7 seed. I'm glad the Vols don't have to go to Gainesville. That'd be a tough game. So speaking of Mountain West, Boise State. There you go. There's another Mountain West team. I mean, it's the Mountain West is better than the Pac-12. And of course,
Look at
the
that.
Pac-12.
Look at that Pittsburgh region. I mean, both three really good matchups.
Got BYU and Texas A&M, Duke, and this would be a dangerous game for Duke. It's Charleston.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course, down here you got South Carolina. They have fallen to a 7 seed. South Carolina, they're going to need to pick it up here. Otherwise, they're really going to tumble in the seed line the last few weeks. Of course, this is the Midwest. I believe Tennessee's in this. Right now, they have Tennessee playing Quinnipiac, which is a team out of, I think, the Northeast Conference.
I don't see Tennessee. Where are you? Oh, okay, in Charlotte.
Down here.
So basically, would be basically a home crowd because Tennessee fans would have gone to Charlotte, North Carolina, compared to like Nebraska, Utah, or Quinnipiac.
Yeah, I mean Quinnipiac is they're best known for their presidential polls, is what they're known for. In this bracket, I'll say this: I would feel pretty good about this setup. I think, looking at the 8 teams, of course, you have St. Mary's, Grand Canyon, Baylor, and Oakland. I mean, Baylor's very, very good. St. Mary's is a good team. I mean, Utah State would not be easy. But this is doable right here. Like, you can make it here, and then on the other side, you're dealing with, like, Purdue, potentially Kentucky, San Diego State. Like, I mean, you could do it. I mean, we could do that if we're consistent. And that's the thing about the Vols in March. They've never been consistent enough to win 4 straight games.
Yeah, that's the big knockout.
Yeah, also this one, though, South Florida, Kentucky. This feels like Coach Cal's got to win it or he gets fired.
I mean, we're talking about this for so much, I don't even know, but that makes sense. But this lifetime contract definitely scares when it comes to talks about coaching change down in Lexington.
I hope this happens. What if we get Houston versus Sam Houston?
Yeah, at least it would be kind of like a city rivalry.
Yeah, that would be a pretty funny matchup.
How about how about
Gonzaga would be crazy.
Yeah,
that'd be a crazy first 4 game. Michigan State and Mississippi State would be interesting. Marquette, I think, would be in grave danger of an upset by Michigan State in the second round.
Never underestimate Tom Izzo.
Yeah. And there's your conference breakdown. I mean, look at this. The Pac-12 in its final year, 2 teams. They're going out very sad.
So that will be because all the USC and UCLA this year is still Pac-12 by the end of this 2023-2024 season.
Right, and I believe the only 2 teams are Washington State and Arizona are the only 2 teams. So, and look at that, the Mountain West has 3 times the amount of teams as the Pac-12. The West Coast Conference has the same amount as the Pac-12. The Pac-12 arguably is the 3rd best conference in the West right now.
Wow. And to think that like in the in the recent past, you had programs like UCLA that were very good, and the Pac-12 were interesting in basketball. But with all the changes due to football alignment, affects basketball too.
Yeah, I mean, just like look, the SEC is tied for the most this year with the Big 12, 9 bids apiece. Um, the ACC only has 4, and the Big East has 5. These two have been your basketball conferences for decades, and they're being outdone by the Mountain West. Like, with all the rumors about the ACC and Florida State, you have to wonder: has their time passed them?
I mean, it's funny. I know this kind of feels a little bit of college football. We definitely have a topic to talk about later. But last week, Pac-12 finally moved on from their commissioner George Klitschko. I mean, only now?
I mean, hey, it's like firing someone when you went bankrupt. Like, yep, you're
Yeah,
fired. We're bankrupt. There's nothing left here, so you're fired. I'm like, yeah, well, there's nothing left to rule.
yeah. It's literally the board firing the CEO after they went bankrupt and sold their headquarters and everything. And there's probably one or two offices. It's like, okay, you can fire me, but like it's literally Washington State and Oregon State, uh, you know, trying to figure out what to do next. Literally, two athletic programs look at each other, be like, what we should do.
Well, so they should join a much better conference in the Mountain West, which is the better conference right now. At least at
Yeah,
basketball. Pac-12 was good in football, but yeah, it's just sad to really see. Um, kind of pivot back to the basketball show. We have a big game Saturday against A&M. They pummeled us in College Station, but I think this is a good opportunity for us to get some get back against
yeah,
the
it
Aggies.
yeah, it's a tournament team, so Tennessee is definitely going to be, and the crowd's going to be wanting this team to prove they can match up well with a tournament team because Arkansas, Vandy, and Missouri were not tournament teams. So A&M is going to be the challenge that Tennessee needs to prove they can be a reliable tournament team.
Yeah, and really need it as next week Auburn comes to town and we go to Tuscaloosa. If we can win on Saturday, I mean, next week will be the regular season championship will be on the line next week. So, gotta take care of business, though.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
it's going to be fun to see how this shakes out. Some other college basketball notes, Purdue, as we mentioned, one of the 1 seeds, lost to an Ohio State team on Sunday to just fired head coach Chris Holtman. In the same arena, well, in the same city, I might add, that they lost to Farley Dickinson last year. For some reason, Purdue is cursed in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah, and it's interesting that how scenarios change. Purdue, I remember defeated, I believe was like a number 2 team in the country in football, Ohio State, and now Ohio State revenged their football team, beating a top ranked Purdue. I know in college football, a loss in the regular season matters way more than in basketball, but still.
Yeah, I mean, it's just also a bad um, and it's just been a bad weekend overall for Indiana basketball. I mean, Indiana lost at home to Northwestern. They're 14-11 now. Indiana Hoosiers are 100% missing the tournament unless they go on a magical run in the Big Ten tournament. And I think Mike Woodson might be on his way out the door there in Bloomington. It's just Indiana basketball feels like Tennessee football, like
They
a power of
they
the past that's just no longer relevant.
No, I compare it to Nebraska. I think Nebraska football feels more fitting with Indiana basketball because they're trying to go coach after coach and cannot get back the juice they had in the past.
Oh, absolutely. Um, UConn. Now, I know UConn, they're down 15 with 2 minutes left against Creighton. They're probably about to rush the court there in Omaha. But they did have a really good win on Saturday against Marquette. It was a top five matchup at home. Um, they're still probably going to be the favorite to go back to back even after this loss. But, Creighton, I mean, they really shut down their really good interior center for UConn tonight. And they showed that UConn is beatable. And
Yeah,
no team is unbeatable in this tournament.
and I want to add another comparison to my Nebraska football, Indiana basketball. Both of them are still clinging to the times of a legendary coach. Uh, Nebraska with Tom Osborne, and Indiana. Uh, oh my God, I forgot the name.
Well, Bobby Knight.
Bobby Knight. Yeah,
Yeah. So it's just sad times for Indiana. UConn looks like they're about to lose to Creighton there in Omaha. Kentucky. You mentioned that you watched Kentucky Auburn on Saturday, and it's been a rough stretch for Coach Cal. That was a huge win for them. They needed that win in Auburn, and I think that's a deflating loss for Bruce Pearl.
solid second half performance. Just solid. By the 3 to 2 minute mark, the game was done, and it didn't feel like that when it was at the beginning of the second half. Feel like a tie game, but Kentucky just clicked in the second half, and it just destroyed Auburn on the road. That you point out a tough atmosphere to play. It's one of the because Coach Cal after always find wins in the regular season that keeps his juice alive and keeps going. So, it ended up being with Tennessee or Auburn, but the question is, when Kentucky comes to the tournament, and I believe they will again, how deeper can they go?
Oh yeah. Um, yeah, it just and Auburn also they had a big injury as well in that game that could derail their hopes moving forward. But what I'm queuing up though is our next story, and this was from the St. John's game that I alluded to earlier. St. John's was coached by Rick Pitino in his first season there. Um, he took over that team after he coached for Iona for a couple of years because he used to be the coach at Louisville and Kentucky. He's won multiple national championships. He did not take the loss to Seton Hall well. Of course, St. John's is in New York. Seton Hall's over in Newark. And this is what Rick Pitino had to say about his team. Because this was just hilarious to watch.
You can play.
I don't think they move well laterally. I don't think they're going to pick it up in the next week. I think they're slow laterally. I mean, Sean Conway gives you everything he can. He's slow laterally. About five guys are slow laterally. Even the Celtics, when we lost, I've enjoyed every minute being the Boston Celtic coach. Didn't like the fact that we lost in that following year, but this has been the most unenjoyable experience I've had since I've been coaching.
Do you have any thoughts of taking this job?
No, not at all. It's not St. John's. It's my team. I think they're very respectful. They hear, but they don't listen. It's taken me a month to get them to throw bounce passes. Actually, 2 months to throw bounce passes. Just thinking of getting ready for Georgetown because Georgetown could definitely beat us. I'm not even thinking of the future at all. I'm just thinking of the next game and the next game and the next game, and that's it. Just try to get as many wins as you possibly can and represent St. John's in the best fashion you can.
Whoa, that's. I mean, I've been working. One thing that's interesting that I work with Rio Branco is dealing with locker room and players, and I cannot even imagine how those basketball players at St. John's got those comments from their coach. They must felt disrespected and a little bit undervalued. Like if it felt like it literally Rick Pitino will call them stupid and childish.
Oh my God! It's one of those things where it's not just about this team. If you're a future recruit, and
Yeah.
St. John's hasn't been the most desirable team, they have had one elite team in team history. That's 1985 when they had Chris Mullen. St. John's has not been that program in this century, and to act like that, you could just go out there and blast your team like that. I don't know. It doesn't sit right with me. Rick Pitino knew what he was getting into at St. John's. That's a rebuild. I have no doubt that he can make that into a really, really good team. But, it just wasn't meant to be this year. And, I just really wonder how his team is going to respond to that in the long term.
Yeah, that's true because how the current players are, because players talk to each other, and especially recruits talk to current players to say, "Hey, how are things in your program?" And probably the comments are not nice.
Oh, absolutely. And they had AJ Score, who's now the star at Wisconsin last year. So, yeah, just a brutal situation for St. John's. And officially it is over. UConn, #1, goes down, and the Creighton students are storming the floor. It's a sea of blue and white in Omaha. But in any case, speaking of ugly situations, though, I got to cue this one up as well from last night. This was a crazy situation in the game between Texas A&M Commerce and Incarnate Ward. Just watch this, because it's in the game. Texas A&M Commerce defeats Incarnate Ward.
Take the sound off.
Incarnate Word. They move.
Okay, the players are. No, a brawl.
Yeah, this one was a very brutal situation.
Oh my God.
And I don't know if you could hear it or not, but the announcers are super calm. The band is still playing, and they're just going at it.
There were some words exchanged that got to this point.
I mean, look at just completely out of control.
Reminds me of the Rio Branco situation last year against Penapolense.
Yeah, you don't see this very often in American sports. Look at this player over here. Just look at how he's being
hold, and he wants to go all really into the fight.
Look, there's 5 people at this game. It looks like a high school gym.
Yeah, it really. That's the interesting about college basketball is it's the same tournament, it's the same championship. For example, that Tennessee, Kentucky, UConn play, and you have that kind of a match in what it feels like a high school gym, but it's the same. Both are fighting for the same title. If in college football, it feels more. It's hard to see that kind of. You don't see high school football stadiums in college.
Right. Right. It's just so different at small tier college basketball, and it's unfortunate for those two programs that's not what they're known for, is that brawl. And I'm sure a lot of those players, their seasons are probably over after that, because I'm sure they're getting some serious punishment from that whole situation. But yeah, I saw that last night. Wanted to put that in because that's quite an interesting situation, and shows how things can just go downhill quickly and things are not kept in check. Quickly on the women's side, I want to bring this up. The Lady Vols. They had a game last week with the #1 South Carolina, a game that actually they were very competitive in. But, as competitive as they were, they led at halftime. They were tied heading into the fourth quarter. That fourth quarter was atrocious.
Reminds me a lot when Tennessee back in 2021 matchup with UConn with UConn back then. They weren't the top program, and they had a competitive game up until the third quarter, and they fell apart in the fourth quarter. It really reminds me of that game, and it's just South Carolina is in another. Zach Wilson is in the BYU game. Interesting enough, he is in the crowd. Um,
He's ended up the days where he was actually good.
yeah, and he's not in like in a suite or in a court side. He's just in a regular seat. That's really interesting. I guess he wants to go back to a place where people like him, unlike New York. But back to back to college, back to women's college, back to women's basketball. I feel like Tennessee saw firsthand last week what a disparity of a program they are now comparing to the top of the SEC.
Absolutely. Now, the good news, at least for Lady Vols, is they did blow out Vanderbilt in a pretty big game on Sunday. And right now, they are solidly in the field. They are no longer even on the bubble, according to Charlie Cream of ESPN. They are a 10 seed right now. Now, granted, as I said in the last episode, I believe, the Lady Vols should be striving to be getting off the bubble. We should be striving to be competing for those top seeds. That's what the Lady Vols have been historically, but at the very least, it looks like the Lady Vols will keep their tournament streak intact, barring disaster. And this week they have some pretty big games because on Sunday, the LSU Tigers, Lady Tigers, come to town. Now, LSU has had some struggles this year, but you would still have to say LSU is still much more talented right now than the Lady Vols. But I think it's an opportunity to get a key win, a signature win for the season.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think for the program, they need a signature in, especially for Kelly Harper. If she wants to keep being the head coach, she needs a signature in because otherwise, it really feels very similar to the last season of Horley Warlick as the Lady Vols coach.
Absolutely. Also, shout out to Caitlin Clark. She is now the all-time scorer at women's college basketball, and she could potentially reach Pete Maravich, Pistol Pete, by the end of this year to be the all-time leading scorer in all of college basketball, men's or women's. It's just crazy what she has done in her career. I mean, she is truly a generational talent.
But and she deserves so much to get a ring, to win a title with Iowa. I mean, it would be crushing if she doesn't get the title.
Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting about Caitlin Clark. You're starting to see like legitimate haters against Caitlin Clark. I don't know. Did you see the Antonio Brown tweet?
Oh no! Oh
Oh.
no, I didn't. But what kind of attention he wants right now?
Yeah. So just a look at this. So first and foremost, this is the tweet, right, that he's quoting. Queen Caitlin, she's a new D women's basketball scoring leader. Then you have AB.
Oh my
She
god!
looks like Mel Gibson, and for some reason he's doing this hashtag CTESPN. I mean, and like if you go for his Twitter, he keeps on doing the hashtag CTESPN, and he's just I don't know what he's on.
Oh my god!
Like Kanye, I don't know what's wrong with these people.
At least Kanye, I guess, can still produce what he's known for, which is music. Antonio Brown, he was a good football player, but he was good. He's no longer a football player.
Well, I mean, his County's on Vultures is basically the football equivalent to the Arena Football League. So, our musical equivalent to the foot. It's no dark twisted fantasy.
Quick discussion: AB as a Hall of Famer? Not really, right? He got only one ring.
Well, he has one ring. I don't know how many All Pros that he has. But I mean, he's arguably one of the best receivers ever. You just have to wonder though, has he had too much off the field controversies? You know, because isn't OJ still in the Hall of Fame? Because if OJ's in the Hall of Fame, then I would say that virtually anyone should be in the Hall of Fame, right?
He was inducted in 1985, and he was named to the National Football League 100th anniversary all-time team. So, I guess I guess he's still on.
Yeah, I mean, if he could be on, so can Antonio Brown. You know, like it's just that'd be a double standard. Talk about a guy who I know he wasn't convicted, but we all know he killed Ron Nicole. So
allegedly, like you better put out allegedly,
allegedly.
I mean, as I know in Brazil and probably US too, like you can only say that convincingly, especially somebody at the news when there's a jury decision.
Yeah. Well, I don't think the jury got it right, but that's just neither here or there. But in any case, yeah, shout out Caitlin Clark. I'm sorry, I feel bad that we derailed Caitlin Clark with Antonio Brown, but I remember seeing that tweet. It's interesting though, Caitlin Clark, the amount of attention she's getting. I mean, she might be the most discussed female athlete in a very long time. Like one of the most discussed female athletes ever.
What's funny about this Caitlin Clark situation is that she proves that people want to watch women's basketball when it's good, when there's a star, when there's relevance, when you watch because of a star, not forced to, not because out of pity or out of I don't know, shame. People, want to watch good basketball, and Caitlin Clark just she doesn't need virtual signaling. She just go on the court and play really good basketball, and people want to watch that.
Yes.
And congratulations to her.
Absolutely. Well, we have some college football news. Of course, we're way in the off season, but there's just a lot going on. First and foremost, Tennessee versus the NCAA continues. I believe we are still awaiting a decision from a federal judge after a hearing last week. Now, from all indications, it appears that the hearing went well last week for the for Tennessee and Virginia versus the NCAA, but the federal judge said he needed some time to make a decision. Meanwhile, we're just kind of in a holding pattern.
I mean, Tennessee kind of plays a home game. Isn't the trial in Greenville, Tennessee?
Correct. But I'm sure this will go up the ladder.
Yeah. That's like a first round where kind of is a home game for Tennessee. Definitely will go to another trial, probably outside of the state of Tennessee, I bet.
Yeah, I hope that Donald Trump's appointees make the right decision.
Yeah.
If the Russians had to interfere with the 2016 election, make it count at least for the Vols.
Yeah, but I want to point out some. Oh, go ahead.
No, we're gonna say.
But for me, the biggest story about college football is the CFP, the College Football Playoff Committee, unanimously approved the 5+7 model for the new 12-team playoff. So now we have a format. Now is established a format. We have now confirmed 100% what's going to be the format moving forward, which is 5 conference championships getting a bye, and then the 7 highest rankings. I believe the only program that kind of got screwed on that is Notre Dame, because with this format, Notre Dame is going to have to be in a conference, or otherwise, even if they are the best program in the country, they're going to have to go play in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, this may force their hand. They might have to go do it if they want to win a championship again. Like, it's just there's no choice around it. It's time for them to join the Big Ten. Like, I mean, all your rivals are there: Michigan, USC, Michigan State is there. Like, everyone Notre Dame plays is in the Big Ten.
Or even they finally hatch things up and consolidate, kind of like a booty call relationship they had with the ACC. Literally, the ACC were Notre Dame's booty call when they needed a conference in 2020. Who do they call? Hey, ACC booty call, can we have one season stand? Oh yeah, sure, come in. And then they bounce off in 2021. Am I wrong?
So you're saying this is like a shotgun marriage that Notre Dame should enter into with the ACC?
Yeah. Now the ACC going to be calling, hey, Notre Dame, I know we had some relationship. We had that one season stand, but you need a conference. How about we had the shotgun wedding? I know it's not ideal for you, but we need you to keep relevant, and you need a conference. Like, because at this point, both will be beneficial because Notre Dame needs a conference to at least, if they were one of the best teams, they're gonna have a bye, and the ACC definitely needs a new factor, definitely needs a new revamping program. If the Notre Dame joins the ACC, maybe we'll make Florida State and Clemson remain in the conference.
Yeah, I mean, and they're going to need a Hail Mary, quite literally. Notre Dame would be literally the Hail Mary for the ACC. Yeah. Knock on wood, right? With being the Catholic school and all. Yeah, because Florida State right now, they are looking to get out. They want out so bad. And basically, they've been in court with the ACC over the past couple of weeks. And basically, the ACC is saying, FSU, you can buy back your TV rights. And basically, what they're thinking is ESPN is going to step in and basically try to free Florida State, because ESPN might just want Florida State in the SEC.
So literally, they would have buy the rights back from the ACC to the SEC, especially. But how big? But I don't. If they were the Florida State of the 90s, even 2013, maybe. But right now, I don't see the appeal for the SEC that bad. I mean, I know Florida State got screwed off. They were one of the best teams in the country last year, but I don't know.
Florida State had a top 5 recruiting class this year.
Yeah, if they were good again this year, then probably would be more inclined. But outside of
Florida State is like a top 10 brand in college football. Like, they deserve to be in the SEC.
No, I know, but I probably what makes this operation not so much appealing is that Florida State, in the past seasons before this one, weren't doing that good. They had some really embarrassing loss. I think they lost to even Jacksonville State.
Right, but right now they're doing well. They are they have played their way back to being deserving of that big time place in college football. And for the ACC, like as you said, if they can get Notre Dame, that would be a Hail Mary. Because honestly, you use Florida State and Clemson, I think that conference explodes, and everyone else just goes to like the Big 12 or something.
Yeah, but now I think with the the college football playoff committee approving this format, and no conference will have a guaranteed spot, and they'll have no limit of participant of any conference.
Let's be real. The top 2 seeds will always be Big Ten and SEC.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And this is the thing too. Like, if this were last year, this format was in place, your 4 teams that would have been out with the new conferences: Michigan, Michigan, Texas, as your SEC, because they were the highest ranked SEC team technically in the playoff, right? Florida State, and Arizona as the Big 12. That's the 4 teams that would have gotten a bye. And then Liberty would have gotten the 5th spot.
Oh yeah.
So it's going to be interesting because I feel like a lot of people are going to start having issues with the 3 and the 4 slots because there's going to be a lot of years where the number 12 team is better than number 3 or number 4. But I'll say this for like Tennessee, I think it's a great thing. It's an extra outlier spot for us because let's be real, it's going to be extremely hard to win the SEC. Extremely hard.
What's funny is that today's meeting was a big opportunity for Washington State, Oregon State to request the continuation of the Power 5 revenue and voting rights in the new college football contract, and even make kind of forcing the what is left of the Pac-12 to kind of be a spot in the playoff, because right now with this 5+7 format will assure the conference champions from SEC, Big 10, Big 12, and ACC in the playoff, among with the highest ranking group of 5. So uh, Washington State, Oregon State are fighting for their lives, but of course they're probably gonna get ignored. I mean, the format is really step up. I don't see any changings because the CFP intentionally won't refer to the group of 5 in the description of format, because there's a chance that a champion from one of the Power 4 conferences finishes ranked below the top champion from the I think it's hard, but the top champion from the American Athletic Conference, Conference USA, Mountain West, Sun Belt, or Mid American Conference, which I think is impossible at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. Like, I mean, those teams, those conferences could beat each other up. I mean, those are some large conferences from the ACC and the Big 12. The Big 12 is 18 teams. It's possible that an American team goes undefeated and they get ranked above. The problem is, so you really have 3 tiers. We shouldn't act like there's 2 tiers anymore. You have the Super 2 in the SEC and Big 10. You have the Mid 2 in the ACC, Big 12, and then you have everyone else.
And that's a point which is going to be bring up in a Wednesday meeting, that the Big Ten, the SEC could have more demands for the college football playoff committee meeting in Texas, because they're attempting to more fully assert their power of their sport. So there's going to be a meeting today where really the Big Ten and the SEC are going to put, as we say in Portuguese, put their wood in the table. Be like, hey, we call the shots. We are the best 2 conferences. We want more. Probably they're gonna try to get more.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and honestly, like at this rate, we all know that this just feels like we're going to an AFC NFC situation split, where SC and Big Ten is all that will matter.
Yeah, the meeting is going to be 11 members of the College Football Playoff Management Committee with 10 FBS commissioners and Notre Dame athletic director, which is ridiculous. Like, really, like Notre Dame feels like, oh, they're so special because we have the commissioners of 10 FBS schools and Notre Dame, like athletic. I don't know, but they're especially this is even a more kind of absurd after the SEC and the Big Ten had their advisory group and they're forming an alliance. That's what the alliance is trying to get: more power over the sport.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be fun to watch. See how this goes down. I'm just glad to be an SEC team.
This offseason in college football probably is going to shape a lot for years to come. Definitely, it's probably going to be one of the biggest offseason for college football behind the scenes. Probably.
I just can't wait until December because I feel like there's going to be some crazy controversies that come out of the first playoff.
Oh, yeah. Because definitely there'll be people like, oh, the same people say 4 wasn't enough. They're going to say 12 isn't enough. Look at this 13 seed out.
Yeah. And or why do we have to watch, the Big 12 champion when we know they're not the top 12 team?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's going to get fascinating, for sure. Some quick coaching notes. Alabama has replaced their OC that went to the Seahawks. They hired Nick Sheridan, who has worked under Kalen DeBoer in a positional role. And Tennessee now has 2 new positional coaches. They had to replace both their linebacker and running backs coach. They brought in William Ing to be the linebackers coach, stolen from LSU. And additionally, they took Oregon's running backs coach and have brought him in. I don't know, brought in Cincinnati's Darrell Sims to replace Jerry Mack, who went to the NFL. So 2 new positional coaches for the Vols. So hopefully they do well and are good recruiters.
And I want to point out something. Alabama, like you talk about, they're bringing a new OC. I know that they had to replace the former OC, especially it was such a fast hire because he went to Tuscaloosa and then bounced back to the West Coast for the NFL job. But in recent years, they had so much success finding, even under Nick Saban, good offensive coordinators. I remember they tried to get former Houston Texans coach Bill O'Brien, didn't work out.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Of course, Bill O'Brien, shout out to him. He's now the head coach at Boston College, by the way. So there's that news. Be curious to see how that works. But it's a new era. I don't know if he's going to have, if Kalen DeBoer is going to have the same kryptonite in Tuscaloosa. For selfish reasons, I hope not. But until I see it, I have to assume Alabama's going to be good. So,
like, you have to think about it. Alabama replaced a legend with a uprising coach who just took a team down in the West Conference to a national championship.
Yep.
So I still keep Alabama as a relevant team that's going to fight for a playoff spot.
Oh, for sure, especially in the new playoff position, because you would have to imagine they still could be one of the top 12 teams in the country.
Yeah.
So quickly, want to shout out some baseball and softball. First and foremost, the baseballs. They kicked off their season down in Arlington. They started their opening weekend 2-1. They got wins over Texas Tech and Baylor.
They won the tournament. They won the tournament there in Texas.
Yeah. They did unfortunately lose to Oklahoma on Saturday, but still it was a good start. Tonight they just won against UNC Asheville, so 3-1. Can't really complain about that start, especially with some of the other results. Vandy right now is 2-2. They lost to Dayton tonight after losing to FAU. Florida's lost to St. John's. I saw Mississippi State lost to, I believe it was Ball State. So some interesting losses so far across college baseball early in the season.
And tonight also marked the opening, home opener for the new Lindsey Nelson Stadium, totally revamped.
Yeah, and I didn't get to watch the game, but based off what I saw in the highlights, it looks gorgeous. So I can't wait to watch some more, maybe get into some games. But I'll say this, the ticket prices for SEC games are ridiculous. Hundreds of dollars, including $400 for LSU.
I guess that's what happens when you revamp your program and the sport gets interesting, especially being the only college sport after football and basketball.
Oh, yeah. That's just the nature of the beast. At least we got softball, too. Now, granted, they had a little bit of a rough weekend. They lost to Stanford and Texas, 2 other elite programs down in Clearwater. So, right now they're 4-2, but,
Down goes number 11 Baylor, lost to BYU 78-71. The game just ended down in Utah.
I'll say this: Big 12 is a bloodbath. It's a hard conference to win on the road. I mean, all of those teams are going to be dangerous. And so this Houston right now is a 1 seed. I've got TCU and Texas Tech on another screen, and that's 77-75 right now with like a minute left. So TCU Texas Tech, we want to put that on. That's going to be a good finish in Lubbock. Quick NFL notes. First one, I just want to recognize the victims of the Kansas City Super Bowl shooting. Unfortunate that we just continue to have this on a regular basis in America. And unfortunately, what happened at the Super Bowl parade. A lot of kids got hurt, and it's just terrible. I commend the Chiefs players who were there for comforting people while this was going on, including Trey Smith, who apparently handed his WWE belt to a child to help calm him down. So I hate that experience got ruined for a lot of people in Kansas City.
Yeah, definitely. Something really sad. And apparently it was not related to the event itself, was a shooting of other reasons, but it just so happened in the same area that the parade was taking place.
Yeah, and we have those type of incidents in Chattanooga too, where it's just gang shootings, and they end up out in just public areas for no reason whatsoever, and it's one thing if they're shooting each other in your hood, but like you bring it out around other people, it's just completely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Just a crime problem in general across America right now. On actual football news, 49ers did fire their DC Steve Wilkes after the Super Bowl. I do think, he deserves some of the blame for that loss. And their defense really didn't play well at all in the postseason. I just feels like a scapegoat firing.
Yeah, totally. They had to find someone to be, that's your fault. Because they couldn't point out Kyle Shanahan inconsistency. So they like, hey, you're out. But he's going to find a job soon. Like the 49ers had a really good defense. I mean, the Super Bowl, they shut out Mahomes for a good part of the first half. So
yeah, I think that's a weird decision in my view.
Yeah.
So NASCAR. So Daytona 500 once again, Mother Nature screwing over NASCAR. This thing got postponed to Monday on President's Day. I didn't really get to watch most of it. Really clean race for most of it. A really nice and intense race. What you want to see in the Daytona 500. But we had a big crash about 10 laps to go. And unfortunately, coming to the white flag, there was another crash. And the yellow flag came out right after they took the white flag. So the race was over under caution. But shout out to the 24 and William Byron getting that Daytona 500 win on Hendrick Motorsports' 40th anniversary. William Byron's just a crazy story. He learned how to drive on a computer. He learned how to race in iRacing. And it's so similar that he was able to translate what he learned on a computer to racing in cars. And he made the Final Four last year, the Championship Four, and now he just won the biggest race in NASCAR. So amazing story for William Byron, a young superstar in this sport. I think a future champion one day in that 24 car. And as someone who grew up a Jeff Gordon fan, I love seeing the 24 winning big races. And also, just as a NASCAR in general, I watched the new Netflix show that came out a week or two ago called Full Speed. Phenomenal show, just as good as Drive to Survive for F1. And I think this is huge because Drive to Survive drove up so much interest in Formula One in America. And now I'm so glad that NASCAR has something similar. And they really feature guys like Denny Hamlin, Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick, last year's champion Ryan Blaney, Ross Chastain. A lot of guys that will build huge fan bases after this show. So huge deal for NASCAR. And I definitely recommend it if you haven't watched it. It's a good time. Even if you don't know anything about NASCAR, you're not familiar with it, Full Speed is a great show. And this week should be a good race too. They're going to Atlanta. Hopefully we have good weather here in the South. Atlanta was a phenomenal race when I went there in July of last year. I'd like to see it go all the way. So I know you have some CONCACAF Champions League.
I want to talk about that. For me, it's a relevant tournament. I know in America don't pay attention to that much, but I kind of like to point out because it kind of reminds me of Libertadores and it's really very relevant in Brazil. What a finish! The St. Louis got the win over Houston in the first leg, 2-1, and the winning goal was in the 90th minute. So St. Louis has a 2-1 lead coming to the next week's game in Houston, Texas. Um, uh, but the big games are tomorrow. So Nashville actually has a match on Wednesday against I believe is called Mona, the team from Mocha from Dominican Republic, and they're gonna have the first game is in the Dominican Republic. The second game is in Nashville, Tennessee, and whoever advances are gonna face Lionel Messi and the Inter Miami on March 7th. So yeah, it would be cool to see Nashville getting the win, especially if imagine it will be the rematch of the Leagues Cup, and I think it will be way more valuable in that kind of a match because it decides like an international tournament in the round of 16 matching up with Miami. That would be a good matchup. Also, tomorrow we're gonna have the New England Revolution playing and Cincinnati as well. So this week
Yeah.
is CONCACAF Champions Cup for American teams.
Yeah, and I think this is big for MLS teams. MLS had some pretty embarrassing losses last year, including that Austin, according to I think it was Levette, the Haitian team that they lost
Yeah.
to. So MLS cannot be taking losses like that. They're going to be taken seriously internationally.
Yeah, right now there has not been any MLS eliminations so far, but all's going to be decided next week. So, CONCACAF Champions Cup week for the MLS teams. Probably, I think all of them are American teams that are in. So interesting to see, and I'm hoping for the Nashville Miami matchup. That would be really cool.
That would be awesome because that game was amazing.
Yeah, so it deserves another Nashville Miami matchup after that battle for the Leagues Cup last season. Now switching to Brazilian soccer, since we're talking about soccer, São Paulo State Championship Week 9. Corinthians seems kind of finding their path after really bad start, being close to the relegation zone, but they got the new coach Antonio Oliveira, got back-to-back wins against teams that are in the relegation, kind of in the bottom area. But the big matchup was Sunday against Palmeiras in the derby game. But it seems things seems to kind of not go their way. They were down 2-0 on a Hendrick, another great matchup. But Corinthians find a way to get a 2-1 back to 2-1. But then they got a player red card. We got the two players injured, and they were out of substitutions. And one of the players were the goalkeeper, so they had to improvise a defender as a goalkeeper and went down 2-man. But they found a way to tie the game with Gajo's free kick at the 97th minute. And Corinthians fans are taking this as a win, even though it was a tie. Palmeiras fans definitely disappointed because the crowd was 100% Palmeiras fans. There were no Corinthians fans. So it was an interesting derby, definitely. A good result for Corinthians' morale. And I don't see Corinthians being more threatened for the relegation zone. They are now, I guess, 5 points ahead of the relegation zone. They're 4 points behind in the qualification in their group. So I think Corinthians gonna fight until the end for getting to the quarterfinals, but I think the distance is kind of big deal. They're gonna have to win on Sunday against Ponte Preta, which is also fighting for a spot in the quarterfinals. But for Palmeiras though, it didn't affect their chances. They're gonna get into the quarterfinals in the Group B, but definitely it got some bad taste, especially being up 2-0 and conceding a goal at the end, and definitely, so I guess that's pretty much what's happening in the Sao Paulo State Championship. Also, Rio Branco winning at the buzzer. Speaking of the state championship in São Paulo, fourth division, our beloved Rio Branco got a win literally at the buzzer. The Rio Branco scored a goal and the game was over. So I called it winning at the buzzer. The game wasn't pretty. It was a lot of rain. It got a rain delay by 10 minutes. Rio Branco was up 1-0 on the first 5 minutes, and then they conceded a goal. And then when things didn't seem to go their way, they scored a goal. They're gonna play tomorrow night. Actually, it's gonna be a night game for Rio Branco tomorrow down in the city of Osasco against Grêmio Osasco Ducks in the beautiful city of Osasco. I'm kidding. It's not a beautiful city. I've been to that stadium twice. It's a kind of like a little bit of not a good part of the city of Osasco, but hopefully Rio Branco can get the win to keep in the top 8 and get to the quarterfinal range. I think that's what Rio Branco should be focusing on. It's like a Rio Branco player said on a locker room meeting this week. It's like the goal should be qualifying, not be the first, not be the second. Should be getting in, and then is another championship.
And I'll say this: I need to find ways to keep on watching. We're 2-0 now. 2-0 now,
Yeah.
and I'm able to watch.
Yeah, you need to watch.
It's crazy. It's crazy how it is. It's just schedule doesn't work out.
Yeah,
For me most of the time.
I know tomorrow will be very busy, but there's always YouTube or Facebook with me, so we'll find ways for you to watch. And finally, Brazilian Cup, our Brazil version of the FA Cup, started tonight with some results. We had only 2 games. Botafogo of the state of São Paulo got the win 2-1 over Nova Venecia from Espírito Santo. It felt like Nova Venecia was going to get the upset and got the win, but Botafogo had a good second half and eliminated Nova Venecia. But we had an upset. Porto Velho of the state of Rondônia. They don't have any division nationally. They won against Remo, which is in the 3rd division nationally, 1-0. So it was a big upset. So we've had for the first upset in the Brazilian Cup. Definitely the Paysandu fans, which is rival to Remo, are gonna mock Remo so much about this win because it really was a big upset. Because even though both of them are in the north part of Brazil, like Remo is a traditional team. They are relevant. They're in the 3rd division nationally. Porto Velho, they're in the state very. It's like if, for example, Nebraska lost to Idaho in football or something like that. So it was kind of like a big deal. Tomorrow we have a bunch of games in the Brazilian Cup. Probably the only big team are Corinthians against Cianorte and Vasco against Marcelo Diaz. So the rule is whoever wins get in, and the low seed, the big teams have to go on the road. Oh no, and they can tie too. Like if the game is tied, the road team advanced because they are the best seeds. They are the best team. They are the bigger brand. So the home team have to win to advance. So if the game is the game is tied, the road team, which is the bigger brand, advanced in this first round.
And that's super weird because I feel like you're just punishing the good teams, but I can see that you're bringing these big teams to these smaller markets for the tournament. So I see the vision.
Yeah. It's kind of like that. Hey, smaller market teams, you can host a big brand, but you're gonna have to win to advance. But if you tied, you're eliminated. So it's like you have the advantage to play on your home, with your home crowd, but you have the disadvantage for 2 out of the 3 results are not yours. Like tie and losing, you get you eliminated. So and whoever advanced get $1.5 million. So for the finances of those teams is a big deal. It's not only for in terms of advance to survive or for the tournament, but also for money because whoever gets to the second round already gets 1.1 million reais for the CBF from CBF. So is a big deal financially for those clubs, especially the small market, because they make money on ticket sales, and if they advance like Porto Velho, they get 1.5 million reais. They can make a huge difference in their season. So
Absolutely. So, and then that can just totally change the fortunes for clubs. So,
yeah,
but in any case, I think that's all the time we have for Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports. For Gus Tomazeli, I'm Nick Hill, and this is the only sports podcast where we talk about both Brazilian and American sports. Have a great night.